Greetings and salutations, people of the internet. Austin here. Welcome to part 2 of the Athnos region breakdown. Just wanted to say thank you for the continued support. If you enjoy this format better than the longer form videos, let me down in the comments below. We ended off the first part in the middle of a water route with our glorious mermaid queen, so we'll be continuing on from there in this video. Without further ado, let's begin. Crag Glacier, the false iceberg Pokemon. Alright, we have our mandatory Kraken Mon up first for the region. Is it really a Greece region without a Kraken? Anywho, this one turned out pretty well in my eyes. I love the icebergs across the body acting as a decoy and as body armor. The little mustache is fun. I think it adds a little bit of personality to the design. It makes it more of a Pokemon. Sub-Zero is the Frostbite version of Flame Body and the like. I believe you've seen it on other Pokemon I've showcased, but this was the first one I gave the ability to, and it certainly won't be the last. Cyrogue, the mischievous fish Pokemon. The second mermaid line of the region. We're going into the Siren side of the spectrum with this one. This and Mervanity share a common ancestor and absolutely hate each other with a burning passion. I wanted this little lady to have big gremlin energy, and I think I succeeded in spades there. I wanted the two species to contrast each other as much as possible, mainly in the color schemes. I went with a lot of purples for this design to contrast with the pink of Mervanity. The fins are more jagged and dangerous looking, and the fin on top gives serious Mohawk vibes. This is such a fun Pokemon. Sirentia, the Power Ballad Pokemon, evolves from Cyrogue via Harmony Stone and goes full metal/rock vocalist with the design. They're a new evolution to Cyrogue in-universe who previously did not evolve prior to the sound type being a thing. The pose is easily the best thing about this design. It really sells this Pokemon going on a high note or in the middle of a sick-ass song. Love the addition of green to the palette to break up the colors and to contrast Mermanity. The red hair was a reference to Ariel from The Little Mermaids, as this Pokemon is all about singing. God, I would have loved to put this on my team, but it barely missed out on the cut. Lots of love. The Love Shark Pokemon. This behemoth is the evolved form of Love Disc once given 300 heart scales and is based on whale sharks and Cupid. I went back and forth on this design for a long time since I wanted this Pokemon to stand out amongst the other incredible Love Disc evolutions I've seen when doing research. So after a lot of trial and error, I decided to go with a whale shark, and the rest was history. I made the tail into Cupid's bow with the shape and overall colors to invoke the love theme there. I added the love disc surrounding them to give it a sense of scale, and the design was a little barren otherwise. I had to add the shiny love disc in the back. It was too good to pass up. This design is simple, but I love it. Athnos Toxel, the Healing Body Pokemon. This regional variant of one of my own Pokemon is based off of ancient Greek medical practices using eels. From using electrical shocks to help with nerve damage or drawing out toxins, these Pokemon are invaluable to any doctor in the region. I gave this Pokemon a complete personality overhaul from their Emelopian cousins, with these fellows being very nice. I made the tail fin a lot bigger and I rounded off all the edges to feel softer and less threatening. Naturally, I made it a fairy type to reflect their new personality and role. Athnosian Conduxeel, the Electric Medic Pokemon. Like their Emelopian cousins, this Pokemon also evolves via Thunderstone. Not much to say here that isn't a repeat of what I said regarding Athnosian Toxel. I gave it a warmer color scheme and expression compared to that of the originals, gave it a slight pose change, and I closed the eyes to make it feel nicer and more wholesome. Only thing I change is making the orange darker so it doesn't blend into the yellow as much as it currently does. Coinron, the Toll Pokemon. Based on the practice of giving the dead 2 coins to pay their fare across the river Styx, these Pokemon possess ancient coins to inhabit the restless souls. The only thing I need to change is the line work. It's rough here. I like each coin/face having a different expression on it. I think that helps eliminate the issues some multiple Pokemon have, like Dugtrio or Magneton. Charocean, the Spectral Helmsman Pokemon. The evolved form of Coinron, once it levels up while in open water, this is based on Charon, the ferryman of the river Styx, and his boat. I knew I wanted a boat/ride Pokemon for the region, and Charon was a perfect choice to do so. I made the figurehead of the boat somewhat vaguely bird-like to give it a more Pokemon feel, and I turned the wings into oars. I gave it a lantern in the back to help the Pokemon be of use at night and to better resemble depictions of Charon in Greek mythology. Lastly, it's floating on a piece of the river Styx, no matter where it goes, be it land or sea. I created Sticks and Stones just for the pun. Are you even surprised anymore, really? Salambush, the Wolf Eel Pokemon. The next 2 were a double act and version exclusives, this one being based off of the Greek mythological monster, Scylla. Considering how weird Scylla is described, I had my work cut out for me figuring out a plan for this design. Considering the dog/wolves around her waist, I had the bright idea to turn them into wolf eels. I know, pretty aren't they? From there, I made this Pokemon a group of wolf eels hiding in a rock formation, hence the giant rock shell this Pokemon is wearing. There's also some vague octopi influence in the design to tie all of the eels together with the central body. I love this Pokemon so much. Definitely my favorite of the duo. Clamrubdus, the Boiling Vent Pokemon. Based on Scylla's counterpart and partner, Charybdis. I had a tougher time with this one. Since the monster is often described as a living whirlpool, I didn't have a whole lot to go with. Then the clam came into play, if I recall correctly, just to make the perfect pun name. I had some hydrothermal vent inspiration into design, being where the fire type comes into play. This Pokemon will create a whirlpool when it opens its shell, and expels the excess water as superheated steam. Boiling Point is a perfect, mid-tier ability that's good enough to be annoying in the right circumstances. The design is simple, but effective. Messenger, the mailman Pokemon. Carrier Pigeon, that's the joke. The mail service of the region, this prideful Pokemon take their job and their hatred for cell phones very seriously. Besides the Carrier Pigeon inspiration, this is obviously based on the Greek god Hermes. Other than making the head more of a 3/4 view, I don't think anything else really needs to change. A better render, and this Pokemon is perfect. Nothing special, but nothing horrid either. Skarmini, the Bronze Bird Pokemon. The first proper baby Pokemon I ever did. This Prevo for Skarmory is based on the Stymphalian birds. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Man-eating birds with bronze beaks and metallic feathers. Initially, I had no plans to make it a Babymon, but it was too perfect and I broke my self-imposed rule with no Babymons. I made the Pokemon predominantly bronze to resemble the source material better and to make Skarmory stand out more. I dialed everything down from Skarmory for this design, and I think it's actually pretty damn cute. As of writing this video, I have done more baby Pokemon, and I do plan to do more. Harry's, the War Rabbit Pokemon. This is another Pokemon that was cut from the now cancelled fan game project that Narcissophile was once a part of. Based on the Greek god of war, Ares, and bunnies. This Pokemon was pretty easy to update from its original design. I gave it a more dynamic pose, I made the bladed ear tips more 3D and prevalent to the design, and added a metal texture across the body. I don't have a whole lot to say about the design. I thought it was pretty well done the second time around, and a worthy addition to the region. Nemoleon, the mountain cub Pokemon. This line is based off the Nemean lion, the lion with impenetrable fur that Hercules had to strangle to death as part of one of his labors. This feisty little cub is a middle-of-the-pack design, pun intended, for the region. There's nothing special about it, but there's nothing blaringly wrong with it. I really like the shade of red here used from Crocodile. I don't use that shade enough for ground types. I felt like giving it huge power just for it to be an absolute menace. Impervious, the shield fur Pokemon. Slap a metal coat on your Nemoleon and you get this steel-coated problem on your team. There is no secondary concept outside of Big Metal Lion for this Pokemon, and I think it's perfect regardless. I love how it came out. Despite the vague resemblance to Luxray, I love the colors, the personality, the pose. That shiny? Not to mention the glorious pun name that, yes, I created this Mon just to use. Keep this Pokemon in the back of your mind for later. We're going to revisit it in a sense. Wartiny, the tiny petal Pokemon. Another non-mythology based Mon. This is based on Iron Dwarfs, aka Greek mountain flowers. I needed a grass type, and as you'll see with the evolution, I wanted to do something a bit different with this line. In terms of design, this is the simplest design in the entire region, and it's no contest. But for what this Pokemon is, I don't think a more complicated design would have done it any favors. But the real money is with the evolution, so let's stop procrastinating. Thaumasnare, the ambush flower Pokemon, evolves via a hive stone. This is now based on crab spiders. Yes, the same became a flower spider. I like the idea of this line, but I think I might need to repose it since I'm not sure the current one works as well as I would have liked. I definitely want to redo the eyes. I don't think they have enough personality to them. The rest of the design is serviceable. I gave it Petal Drop to help them deal with their flying type attacks for one turn and try and survive a hit, and then dish one out. This was a very experimental design for me at the time. Athnos and Tinkatink, the Metalsmith Pokemon. Giving Gen 9 some love here, this regional Tinkaton line is based on the Greek god of the forge himself, Hephaestus. I changed the coloration to be more red to reflect the new fire type this Pokemon sports. I replaced the club/rattle it holds for a pot of molten metal that they use to reforge broken weapons. I gave it spikier hair and made the metal up front more like a chest plate for defense. Yeah, I gave it huge power so it'd be an absolute monster. Sue me. Athnos and Tinkata, the Anvil Pokemon. Biggest change with this one is that I turned the hammer into an anvil so that they can forge on the go. I got rid of the single strand of hair on the side and made the bangs bigger to act like a welding mask tilted off of her face. In addition to giving her heavy gloves. I redid the pose so she wasn't mid-air but still about to crush something with her weapon of choice. Lastly, I turned the metal on her hips more into kind of like an armored skirt or plating. This one took the longest to get right overall, if I recall correctly. Athnos and Tinkaton, the Forge Hammer Pokemon. She now has her hammer back, but now the end is superheated and is always letting off steam. Her hair/welding mask is covering her eyes for protection. She's now wearing an apron of sort, and the gloves are more prominent in this design. I made the bow in the back shaped like flames along with the tips of her pigtails. I love how this Pokemon came out, and I was happy to make it the second member of my in-game team. I know, big gap between members this time around. Arcroot, the Golden Jackal Pokemon. Another dreaded camo/army Pokemon. I'm so glad I quit doing this stupid pattern all the time. Anywho, as the classification spoiled, this is based on Golden Jackal pups and army grunts. There isn't a whole lot to this Pokemon, sadly, outside of the camo pattern, which irritates me now. It perfectly sums up the normal type's middle-of-the-pack designs as a whole. Nothing great, but nothing offensively bad. Jack Command, the Tactician Pokemon. Now a proper general, this Pokemon has a lot more going for it than its Prevo did. The patterns are more uniform and thought out, the pose is better, and the proportions are more interesting. I love the pattern on the chest resembling medals you'd see on decorated generals. Keeping the eyes closed was to help give this Pokemon more of an identity for itself compared to my other Doggomons. If this didn't have the sound type, it would be mono-normal, FYI. Reflection, the Mirror Shield Pokemon. This tiny fella is based on Perseus and Funhouse mirrors, with a little bit of Odysseus thrown in there at the end, honestly, considering the lore of this Pokemon. The main predator of sorts for Aramu, these Pokemon use their wool as back armor to prevent sneak attacks. I knew I wanted this Pokemon to be more humanoid than with most of the region, with the Mirror Shield being the main draw of the design to reference his battle with Medusa. This is an alright Pokemon all around, but the lore of the Pokemon is more interesting than the Pokemon itself. Cyclops, the Ocean Brute Pokemon. Hopping fully onto the Odyssey with this one, we have the Cyclops Guardian of the Golden Fleece himself, Polyphemus. I made it a water type to reference him being Poseidon's son, and to have a secondary design theme outside of a generic Cyclops. I normally don't like giving Pokemon objects to hold, but this was an exception as a good Cyclops has to have a club, and it makes for a more interesting silhouette here. The shiny needs some work on a second glance. Polyphemus, the Esper Club Pokemon. Now blind, referencing his battle with Odysseus, this Pokemon uses ESP to see the world around it and create its psionic club. Said club is the weak link of the design. It needs more flair to be really eye-catching, pun intended. Otherwise, I really like how this design came out. It has fun proportions, good color balance, and the only thing I would really add is some scale textures across the body. Fate Line, the Life Thread Pokemon. So, fun fact, I designed a 3-stage Psychic line based on the fates for the cancelled fan game I've brought up here and there in this video. As such, I wanted to do something different for my own region, and that's why I went with a single-stage line. A red Thread of Fate combined with a Yarn Ball is super fun for a cat Pokemon. Only thing I would change is now adding a Psychic Glow around the floating strand. Other than that, this little kitty's perfect. I wanted this Furball to have a niche role, so aside from it being a support mon mainly, this thing can do some serious damage when knocked out thanks to its custom ability. The render on these spectral scissors could also use some work now that I look at them again. Athnos and Rellor, the rolling Pokemon. We got back-to-back regional variants here, both of which are version exclusives and are linked thematically. This regional Rellor is based on Sisyphus, a man cursed to roll a boulder up a hill every day, only for it to fall back down and have him start all over again. Rellor was the only natural choice for this inspiration, making the mud ball it rolls around into a molten lump of coal. This one probably changed the least out of every original variant I have in this one, but it works well enough for the design here. Only thing I would change is giving more of a glow to the molten center of the coal. Athnosian Rapska, the Sun Bearer Pokemon. Evolves from Athnosian Rellor once it reaches the highest point of the region and levels up. This Pokemon is now based on Prometheus. The psychic embryo of the original carried around has become a fully fledged sun to reference Prometheus giving fire to humans in Greek myth. Its mustache is now shaped and modeled to look like heavy smoke clouds. Added the ring of rocks orbiting around the sun to make it more visually interesting, and to keep part of the coal element from Rellor into this design. I love how this Pokemon came out, only some rendering issues on the sun holding this design back. Athnosian Apex, the large talon Pokemon. You can't have Prometheus without the eagle eating his liver every day, so that's where this regional Apex comes into play. I gave the Amalop region a lot of love in this region in hindsight. Anyway, I wanted this variant to resemble a butcher, cutting out their prey's organs, or the family-friendly version of that in an official Pokedex. If feathers had become a bloody apron up front, probably could have toned that down a tad, and the main feathers now act as super sharp blades. They will hunt Athnosian Relor to eat them, as well as stealing their coal to keep their eggs warm. This is an alright regional variant that I need to bring down a tad in the next pass of this region in the future. Crowyena, the Stalking Laughter Pokemon. This line is based on the Crocata, mythical creature said to resemble hyena that can mimic the voices of humans and cows. This is a new addition to the region itself that is modeled after primarily a hyena in the stage, adding in more elements from the myth and the evolution, as you'll see. I think this is actually a perfect Pokemon overall. The colors are balanced, the proportions are good, and the silhouette is solid, and the personality shines through perfectly. The only thing I might change is making the eye a touch smaller so I can make the grin a little wider. Crochata, the voice Pokemon. In some descriptions of the Crocata is, and I quote, the swiftest of all beasts, about the size of an ass, with a stag's haunches, a lion's neck, tail and breast, a badger's head, cloven hoof, mouth opening right back to its ears, and ridges of bone in place of teeth. So I ran with parts of the description and gave it hooves on its back legs, a pseudo-lion mane around its neck, and a wider smile. I made the colors darker to reflect its nature, despite being a psychic type. The perspective on the face is what needs to change the most here. The eye and the ear placement looks off to me now. Hopefully that'll be an easy fix in the future. Groplaster, the fermented Pokemon. The weakest designed line in the region, in my opinion. This is based on grapevines, wine, and drunkards. The idea of this design is good, but I hate the execution of it. I need to shift the grape heads around to make them flow better, and give it a better pose overall. I really do love that each grape is a different kind of drunk. A sad drunk, a happy drunk, an angry drunk, and lastly, a sleepy drunk. I thought that was clever. Dionysus, the fermented Pokemon. Now throwing in the Greek god of wine, Dionysus, into the mix, this chonker spends all day lounging around in a wine barrel, getting smashed on its own juices. The legs and the grape torso/beard need to be changed ASAP. They look awful. Otherwise, I think the design is actually solid at its base core. Athnos, the wise owl Pokemon. The evolved form of Noctowl after using Psychic 15 times in battle. This giant birdie is based on the Greek goddess of wisdom, Athena. Before anyone asks, no, this species is not entirely female. 95-5 split, however. I modeled the face and chest to resemble Athenian armor, with the row of feathers/hair acting like the decoration on a helmet. The outside of the wings are vaguely shaped like shields, with the pink triangles on the inside of the wing, vaguely arrow-themed. I love this evolution a lot. Noctowl needed a lot of love, and I hope I did it justice here. This was the third member of my in-game team. Gem Midas, the Creeping Crystal Pokemon. The evolved form of Sableye after it levels up holding a King's Rock. This is based on King Midas, the king who could turn anything to gold but with a touch. And stereotypical imps/demons. I felt like Rock Ghost was the best typing for what I could do with this Pokemon, being primarily gem themed. So it's why I ditched the dark type when it evolves. The design took a long time to get right. Mainly the proper distribution of gold across the body and the tail/back spikes overall. I love this design so much. My love of Sableye well documented at this point. I love how the render on the gems came out in the end. That took me a minute to nail down and make it look good. I wanted to put this on my team so badly, but I couldn't make it work out. So sad. Volar, the mountain rat Pokemon. Based on snow voles, this round boy is nothing special, honestly. This could be classified as Dex filler if you wanted to be mean about it, but you wouldn't be completely wrong. I created this line to help balance out the ice type in the region, not out of any major desire to do a snowball Pokemon. The only thing I would really change about this design without a complete rework of concept is moving the feet back on the body. They feel too close up front for my liking. Otherwise, it's alright. Avalanche, the Chattering Teeth Pokemon. Now throwing the sound type onto the Pokemon for the unique type combo, and to reference the loud noises Chattering Teeth make all the time. This Pokemon has a lot going for the design, but it's still nothing to write home about at the end of the day. I think the only fumble with the design is the tail scarf. I think I need to redo it so it reads as the tail easier and not as a random ass scarf. The ice buck teeth in front adds a lot of fun as the focal point of the design. Nothing horribly wrong, just nothing special. Treasure, the Treasure Shell Pokemon. Another non-Greek mythology Pokemon. There's been a lot of that in this part, huh? Anyway, this is a tiny little fellas based on treasure chests and is the primary food source of Gem Midas. There's not a whole lot to say about this Pokemon. It's a smug turtle prince with a treasure chest shell. The only thing I need to fix is the ruby on the side. It looks like buns. I gave it royal presses in order to try and deal with its horrid type matchup against fighting. Still gets bodied by Mach Punch though, I can't do much about that. Royalty, the Treasure Shell Pokemon. I really like the render on this Pokemon, mainly the ruby shell on its back. That took a lot of work, but damn was it worth it. The only thing I change about this design is to make the gold casing for the ruby go down further on the body. It looks a tad small. Also, the perspective on the ruby toes in the back needs some work, admittingly. Otherwise, I really like the diamond pattern I added across the body to help break up the colors, and makes the Pokemon feel a little bit more sparkly. This is just a damn good Pokemon in my opinion. Shamonice, the Ice Climber Pokemon. Back-to-back cross-gen evolutions, this one being for our icy friend from the Xenia region, Snowmount. The premier rock climb Pokemon of two regions. My boy's doing so well for himself. This Pokemon takes the Ice Climber theme of the original and dials it up to 11, alongside adding the chamois into the design. I made the horns and hooves more overtly based on rock/ice climbing gear, made the body bigger and more ornate looking. Really trying to get the backpacker vibes you see from some Pokemon NPCs. Lastly, the hat Snowmount was wearing has turned into a proper helmet. This is such a good evolution. Snowmount needed this badly. Olympus, the Mountain Shell Pokemon. This unit of a Pokemon is the evolved form of Crustle once exposed to an ice stone, and is based around Mount Olympus. Originally, this wasn't going to be an evolution, but it fit, so I changed gears and made it an evolution with a worse type. Sorry about that. I modeled the claws to look like marble pillars, figured that helped make the Pokemon more dynamic in the shape department, and to tie into the temple usually housing the gods on top of Mount Olympus. I added the clouds to make this Pokemon seem even bigger than it already is, and to break up the shapes. Added the icy tips to the claws, feet, as well as the eyebrows and beard this Pokemon now sports. I gave it Divine Protection to make out for its horrid new typing. Despite not being planned, I love this evolution. Volcaf, the Singing Cow Pokemon. More of an obscure reference, this Pokemon is representing the Greek god of the sun, Apollo, or more specifically, his cattle. I made this Pokemon part sound type to reference Apollo, also representing music, pottery, and prophecies. I think the eyes are holding this Pokemon back from reaching its full potential, as there isn't a whole lot of personality shown off in this stage. Still, the colors are balanced, proportions are solid, and there's nothing inherently wrong with the rest of the design. Yes, the tail is supposed to look like a microphone. Music, the Sun Choir Pokemon. Now a full-on vocalist, complete with backup singer/choir, this heifer wakes up before dawn and welcomes the new day through song. If you're curious, this Pokemon would be a fire or normal type if the sound type hadn't been invented. I originally wasn't going to have the choir behind this Pokemon, but the design felt lacking, and I thought it would be funny having two tiny Volcaf tagging around with the main Pokemon. My favorite design detail is the star-shaped people. I think that adds a lot to the design, personally. One of my favorite sound types in the region. Hercursa, the Shockwave Bear Pokemon, based on the man, the myth, the problematic legend in a lot of renditions, Hercules, and bears. The main thing I want to point out is the impervious pelt this Pokemon is wearing, referencing Hercules doing the same with the Nemean lion after killing it. So I'll just keep that note in the back of your mind. I really love how this Pokemon came out. It feels large and powerful, able to send you flying with a single paw swipe. I'll admit, the sound type is a bit tacked on, but I think it creates a fun type combo for this Pokemon. One of my favorite single-stage Pokemon in my catalog. Furfrodyte, the non-binary icon Pokemon. Evolves in Furfrou once it reaches max friendship. This is based on the Greek goddess of love, Aphrodite. I wanted to do something different with this Pokemon and break up one of the more outdated mechanics when it comes to attraction in Pokemon. So I kept the aspect of love and affection from Aphrodite, but I made this Pokemon non-binary, so it's not tied down by the usual convention of gender norms when it comes to Pokemon mechanics. Fairy was a no-brainer to add on to this Pokemon. Promiscuous was created to play into the Pokemon's newfound freedom and gameplay role, plus being a menace with a 30% charm chance on contact. This is a perfect place to end off this part with another icon. Well, I wasn't expecting to jam-pack so many cross-gen evolutions into this part of the video. Should have spread those out more in the region itself. Well, the thing is, we're not even done with the evolutions of this region. This has the most out of all of them thus far. Well, y'all know the drill at this point. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. Be sure to turn on the noti bell if you don't want to miss the next part coming soon. Let me know what your favorite Pokemon in this part was. I really enjoy reading those. I'll have the next video coming out soon. This is Austin, signing out.